I'm Dan Carney, and you found the Speedskating video podcast, so let's do this. My guest today is Kimani Griffin. Kimani was a national inline champion skater in 2007 and 2008. He moved to Salt Lake City in 2010. Made his first World Cup team in 2015. Was part of a team sprint World Cup gold medal in Heronville, I believe. And then became an Olympian in 2018 in the Pyeongchang Games. And after an unfortunate end to the 2022 campaign, presumably he is retired. So let's bring him in and find out more about that right now. So, Kimani, thank you for joining me. You're in Salt Lake at the moment?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Dan?
Never better. So, I said presumably retired because I remember talking to Shawnee Davis and Brian Hansen after they retired, and apparently there's some sort of paperwork that you're supposed to file that says that you're officially retired. Is that something that you've done, or do you even know about it, or do you care?
Yeah, the only paperwork that I guess officially needs to be filled out is with USADA and or WADA. Um, and I retired from the testing pool and let US Speed Skating know that I was officially retiring.
Gotcha. Okay. So we won't see you back on the ice in competition anytime soon, unless you want to wait 5 years and join me on the Masters circuit.
Ooh, it's not likely. No.
Very tempting, yes, I understand. So I mentioned in the beginning that you had won some national championships in inline skating. I know quite a few of the top ice people, especially in the United States, have come from rollers. I've watched some of it, some of the indoor stuff, which frankly scares the crap out of me. But when I read the bio and it says national champion. What does that mean exactly? Was it a specific distance, or what did you do in 2007 and 2008 that was great?
Oh man. Yeah, that was actually indoor national
Mm.
championships. Um, and at that time, I think I was a junior. So it was like 16, maybe I was 17, around the time I'd like just turned 17 and 18, those 2 years. And for that specific national championships, it's I guess, a cumulative points slash placements over three
Mm.
distances.
Oh, okay. What
Yeah.
what is an indoor distance?
It's a 100-meter track, pretty much like almost like a, excuse me, almost like a basketball court kind of uh, floor with a sticky coating on it. And for junior, it was a 500 meter, a 1,000 meter, and 2,000 meter
Ooh,
distance, maybe.
20
So a five
laps.
lap, 10 lap, 20 lapper,
Ugh,
essentially.
sounds brutal. Better you than me.
It was fun many, many moons ago.
So, so you got your start on rollers, I guess, when you were around 7 or 8 years old. Who got you into that, or how did you find it?
Yeah, I was honestly don't even remember how old I was, maybe around 7 years old. Um, I went to the local skating rink in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Skate Haven. It's still standing. Um, but I went there for my mom says it was a birthday party. I recall it to be like a school kind of class party event thing. But either way, I went to the skating rink, rented some skates. We were leaving the rink, and at that time, the local speed team was practicing, and this I do very vividly remember. watching them and being like, damn, they're fast. I want to go fast. And that's pretty much what happened. I actually, my first pair of skates were a pair of roller hockey skates. Um, I competed in a very local competition at the rink. I think I won on the hockey skates. Somebody saw me, told my mom to like get me a pair of skates. Got a pair of like hand-me-down skates from someone, I think, and I spent my life trying to go faster than than I was before.
Well, you obviously achieved a lot on the rollers, and then fast forward some, you got the opportunity to go to a camp of some sort, like a transition camp or something in Salt Lake. You were probably what, 17 by then, or
Yeah, I skated, actually skated Junior World Championships in 2006 and 7 on inlines, and then in the summer, really like spring and summer of 2008 was probably my first really big kind of like crossroads of my life, like what to do next, where to go, which passion to kind of follow. Um, I was really killing it on the guitar at that time, and I came, I did like a couple guitar performances, and at that time I had just graduated high school, and I didn't know if I wanted to slash should go to school or move to Salt Lake and pursue skating. And right after I did a Carnegie Hall performance, and literally right after the performance, I got a phone call saying that I got this massive scholarship to go to school. Um, so that happened, and then maybe within a couple months, I went to the 2008 Nationals, did really well, won everything, broke a bunch of records, and I was just kind of like, I guess I'm going to school next month. It was kind of
wow.
too good of an offer to pass up, and it was one of those things that if I turned it down at that moment, I wouldn't be able to get it again in the future.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I took it, went to school, and but I think nationals that year was in July, if I'm not mistaken. It was like right around my birthday. Um, and in between those nationals and going to school, I came to Salt Lake and just, I don't even know where I got blades from, to be honest. And I'd always skated short track from like 14 to 18. Um, and that was my first time trying long track. I was here for maybe like 3 weeks, skated. I think I skated a time trial or two, and then went to school, essentially.
Uh, and in Columbus State, you were there for how many years before you finally decided you're making the change and you're heading off to Salt Lake?
I was there for 2 years, and a lot of things happened in those 2 years that have made me who I am today. But it, some of it was being on my own away from home for the first time. I had a ton of scholarship money. I didn't have really anybody to kind of chaperone me or tell me really what to do and how to behave. So we'll just say it was a wild, crazy 2 years at school.
Wow.
And around, I guess it would have been the 2010 Vancouver games. Um, it was a combination of a lot of things. It was me kind of going down a path I didn't want to while I was in Georgia going to school, on top of missing skating, because I was still showing up to nationals once a year for inlines, completely out of shape and still surprisingly doing well. But it was really like the 2010 games and seeing like Heather, who I grew up skating with, and JR, who I was competing against since I was like 9 or 10, and just people that I kind of like saw myself in that regard. Um, on top of not doing well in what I was supposed to be doing in school, missing skating, and just kind of like feeling like I needed to remove myself from Georgia. And, if there was any time for me to want to pursue skating and potentially any Olympic teams, I just felt like now at that time was the time to do that. Um, but yeah, I miss skate. I mean, it was really like a combination of a lot of things. Um, yeah, I was a wild kid. Um, but yeah, I
Yeah.
miss skating, and I just, I honestly, I remember, I think I was about 10 years old, and I had just left a practice in High Point, North Carolina. I was with my mom, and I don't know what we were doing, but I remember sitting in the Walmart parking lot of High Point, North Carolina at 10 years old, and I don't know what prompted it, but I said I want to be an Olympian.
Really?
And at that time, obviously, I had no idea like really what it meant. I had no idea what type of work ethic or what, I just had no idea what it meant to be able to say that. Um, but I do remember saying that. And then going through what I went through at college, and, the 2010 games happening, I was like, it's now or never, essentially.
Hmm.
I'm not going to come back at, you know, I guess I would have been, I guess I still could have gone to school and done it, but for whatever reason at that time, it was now or never. Um, so left school, and handful of months later, I moved to Salt Lake.
Yeah. Is it a foregone conclusion to say you made the right choice?
Um, I wouldn't say it was the wrong choice, and I don't live life with any regrets. So, um, the last 12 years, I guess you could just call it my ice skating journey. Um, yeah, man, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Excellent. So we kind of glossed over, how much music played a role for you in that beginning, and I wanted to share something with you, but really more so with the audience here. I'm just gonna bring up something real quick.
Hi, my name is Kimani Griffin from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's January of 2008, and I'm a classical guitarist.
So that's I don't even know what to say about that. I'm a musician. I'm a guitar player, but our styles are vastly different. But my appreciation for not so much your talent, but in order to play the pieces that you played in the video that I saw, the amount of discipline, time, um, it's incredible. I mean, there's probably some similarities between speed skating, which is such an exacting sport that requires unbelievable amounts of practice and discipline, and to be able to play parts like that, I feel really there's a lot of crossover there. But at the same time, music is very, to me, music is very, you get rewarded in some regards for being creative. And I think in speed skating, if you get creative, you get punished. You're trying to do the same thing over and over and build a craft and be repetitive. Um, anyway, how does that make you feel seeing
Uh, like my hairline's disappeared forever.
that? Not exactly what I was expecting, but okay.
No, minus having hair and uh, uh, how would I call it, a pubescent tone of voice. No, I think it's funny. I just came across that video not long ago. Um, And my first reaction is disheartening because I'm nowhere near as refined as I used to be on the strings. My chops are way sloppier these days. But I think there's a lot of similarities between the two. I get asked that question, or I have a lot in the past, and aside from like timing and rhythm and things of that nature that I think are kind of the most obvious crossovers of the two. Um, they're really, I mean, as much as I went almost mad about skating and perfecting my craft, I was the same on guitar. I used to lock myself in practice rooms for 5 hours and almost like beat my head against the wall over four measures of music. And um, I definitely, at that time, because I was also performing on guitar a lot, I was going to a lot of competitions, national, international, doing a lot of concerts and things of that nature. And there's, I would almost say like the same, while art is kind of infinite in its creativity and, you can always push the boundaries of art. Um, there really, with classical music, there's not as much. I don't want to say there's no creative expression because obviously there is, but if you're learning a piece that's from a 16th century composer or 17th century composer that's been transcribed from one instrument to the guitar, and depending on the composer, where they're from, the time period, what was going on in the country where they're from at that time, why this note was put here, why the layout of the music in the notes is the way it is. There's kind of, I don't know, almost like a circle of what the composer wanted to get across in that particular piece. Um, so, like, there is the creativity and expression of music and performing it within kind of the confines of that time period or the what's written on the music and stuff. So there's, man, there's I don't want to say a million different ways to skate, but you can take one distance in skating, uh, and there's those same confines of like, this is what makes a good skater because they're doing these specific speed skating demands really well. Um, but there's, you watch everybody skate, and everybody has their own style of achieving those speed skating specifics.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same in music. There's, if it's Baroque, you're not going to play a Baroque piece the same as you would a contemporary piece, and vice versa. So yeah, I don't know. I think I definitely was mad and quote unquote crazy about skating and technique and details and things of that nature, the same way I was on skating. And, you know, at the end of the day, they're both performances. So, like, you see me or whoever give a guitar concert or a concert of any kind, you don't see the behind the scenes
Yeah.
late night sessions, wanting to break your instrument, going crazy over it, just essentially becoming mad with your craft. The same way you watch people win gold medals and skate really fast and it looks so effortless, but you don't see all the grueling sessions and almost like maddening times in training. So
Yeah.
um, never. No, I mean, it was, probably like 19 to, or 18 to maybe 23. I would say that chunk of time was a big soul searching, we'll just label it as a very curious time. And a lot of my bad habits didn't just go away overnight when I moved to Salt Lake. Um, as long as we're being honest, like really the first couple seasons I was out here, I guess that would have been 10, 11, 11, 12, 12, 13, really like probably the first 3 seasons. Um, I was still on my own. I still had a lot of bad habits. I wasn't really the most disciplined. There was workouts that I skipped. No one really held me accountable the way that I needed to be held accountable. Um, and it wasn't until Coach Spees actually came out to Salt Lake. I think that would have been like at the end of the 12-13 season, around there, maybe 11-12, that I started to kind of like look at why I was out here differently, learn to cherish the opportunity that I have to be out here, not only doing what I love to do, but the opportunity that I had to also be great in skating, and the lifestyle of training 6 days a week, twice a day, and all of that stuff. It definitely took me a few years to kind of like be all in and on board with what was being asked of me, and the things that I was asking of myself, and to live up to the expectations that I had of myself. But I would say really like the switch probably went off when it was 2014 Olympic season.
Okay.
And that year I actually trained alone with Coach and Anthony Barthel, who I've also known since I was 13, 14, around that age. And I was like, oh, it's Olympic year. I got to be extra super serious. And I actually made a lot of improvement that year. And I think I ended up finishing like 8th in those trials.
So you got these guys that were helping you. You'd told me about Coach Spees in the past, but when you got out there for these first few years, were you part of a team? Who was leading you? Or you said you missed a workout. Was that a workout that somebody else wrote a program for you, or were you part of a team?
Yeah, so like the first 3 or 4 months I was here, I skated short track. I was waiting on some long track equipment to come in. A boot was being made for me at the time. But I started training with the fast team out here, so like the developmental team out here. Matt Corman was my first coach. And honestly, I have come to realize, maybe not necessarily only in skating, but in life in general, people that are in charge of leading or directing, or a boss, or however you want to phrase it, if the if the employee or the athlete or whoever is giving subpar effort, or not taking it seriously, or not showing up on time, or it's hit or miss. If they do show up, you're either going to get fired, or you're not really going to be given kind of the time of day. And while I do wish that somebody had kind of like reached into me to pull out what it is I had to offer earlier, I mean, it was my own doing. So I was on the fast team for the first 3 or 4 seasons I was out here. And then after 2014, that following season, I made my first team, and then it just kind of like, went up from there. And
Yeah. So
the faster I skated, the more people were interested, and it's kind of the nature of the game.
So in that 2015 season, then who was coaching the sprinters? Was that Ryan?
I actually made the fall World Cup team. That would have been a 2014 of the 14-15
Okay.
season, but I was actually skating on the fast team that year, and Tucker Fredericks was my coach that season. all the love and respect for Tucker. I think we worked really well together. Obviously made tons of improvement together. And that kind of just, I think I ended that season on like a 35 flat and like a 108.9 or something in the 1,000 around that time. And that kind of, I guess, catapulted me into the national team. And then those 4 years leading up, or I guess 3 years leading up to 2018, I was back with Matt Corman.
Okay, gotcha. So let's talk about, those years leading up to 2018. You were a regular on the World Cup circuit, so I think that tapped into a little bit of passion of yours, being able to do some traveling, meet some people, see some things. So what are some of the memories that you have of that portion of your career that really stick with you?
Man, honestly, 2014 to 18 was probably the most fun I had skating. Um, it was just like, it was so new. And while I was achieving more for me, it really, like my first year on the World Cup circuit, the first two World Cups I went to actually paid my way to go. We competed, the team only skated 2 World Cups of that fall, and it was Berlin and Heerenveen, I believe, were the two. And I remember talking to Tucker at the time, and he thought it was a good idea if I went. I had just missed the time standard for U.S. speed skating to fund me, but I just felt like it was something that I needed to do if I wanted to continue on that upward trajectory through the sport. And one thing that I really tried to do, really all the way through that quad, was to just be a sponge to everything that came my way, whether it was learning how to travel the world, eat different foods, sleep on shitty beds, different time zones, different ice conditions, different levels of competition. And really, like, the first, probably, like, maybe through that whole quad, but for sure the first 2 or 3 seasons of me traveling on the circuit, like, I didn't miss a men's A group race. Like, I was there in person watching. And it was like, I had felt like this accomplishment of making the team and being a part of it. And then watching the A group races, I was just like, fuck, like, I got, these are some big dogs, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These are like some grown men that are really throwing down some fast ass times. And it was almost belittling, but also like inspiring too, that not only was I a part of it, but it was kind of like in my face what I was up against. But yeah, and then the next season, I joined the national team, and I joke around with Mitch a lot that, those were my favorite years of skating and training. And even with being on that team, while I was like, okay, now I'm part of the national team, another accomplishment, another kind of thing to check off the list, I was just a student of the game, really, for that quad, and being on the team and trying to follow Mitch as much as I could. And we had just an awesome training group that year. Some dogs that wanted to win, wanted to bury themselves in training, and we, not always, but I'll say for the most part, we had a really good, healthy, I want to beat you, I don't like when you beat me, oh, you think you're good, I'm better, like, it was the ebb and flow of that kind of energy on the team. But man, we skated so fast, so hard, and I wish I could live that quad all over again, honestly.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, really just becoming like a student of the game.
it got you to the 2018 games. Um, I that's kind of when you and I met and started, having some communication. It was awesome to see you be a part of it and to experience it. Um, Tell me something about going to an Olympics that maybe might be surprising for some people. Like, is the experience that different, or is it just like a World Cup with bigger medals?
Mm, yes and no. Um, I think the sense of, I guess it's the same in a lot of aspects, just kind of to a higher degree, um, or like a more heavier sense of some feelings. Uh, I never cried when I made a World Cup team. Um, and it wasn't until I think after the men's 1500 that kind of like solidified my place on the 2018 team that I felt I felt like an insane sense of like arrival to like this as a 10-year-old that wanted to be an Olympian, this sense of like arriving to this thing that I kind of had set out to do that maybe at times I didn't think was always possible, and et cetera, et cetera. And just kind of like I don't know, I guess they call it the Olympic spirit, but um, to make the team and then to kind of all the gear that you get, to like just like the treatment, to um, I guess the title of being able to call myself that. It was like the first time I felt, probably the first and only time I felt that being a speed skater was important,
Mm.
or like it was a big deal. And man, I think my favorite part of the games was probably team processing and opening ceremonies. Um, it was the only time really in my career that I kind of had a brief glimpse of feeling like a celebrity, so to speak, or
Sure.
like that, like being this caliber of an athlete was actually a big deal. But I do remember being called to the line for my race and feeling like it was a World Cup.
Yeah.
Actually,
Interesting.
I had the conscious thought while I was going to the line, like I wasn't nervous. I didn't feel like I was in like foreign territory, like I had never been here before. Um, and I remember going to the line, like, yeah, dude, it's just like another World Cup, just rip it.
When you found out after the 1500s and then they announced the official team, did your mind go back to the 10-year-old kid in the parking lot? Did you remember that?
I actually texted Coach Spees because at that time he was coaching in China with the short track team, and my man, it's tearjerker worthy. My head went back to uh, when I was more in like my, I guess, coming up stages of my career. I'll never forget, I guess it was 2012. Um, Me, Coach Spees, who's from my hometown, Anthony Levine, who uh, grew up and went to high school in my hometown, ended up playing 12 years with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I know him.
Um, but at that time, he was on the Green Bay practice squad or like I think he was on the practice squad at that time and trying to like solidify his place in the NFL. I had another homeboy from my hometown, CJ, who ended up playing a couple years in the Canadian Football League. But the four of us had like a quote unquote training camp in Salt Lake, and we all stayed in my like 700 square foot one bedroom apartment. And, you know, I had my bed in the bedroom and a crappy ass futon in the living room. And they cycled through sleeping on the futon, two of them be on the floor, one bathroom, four grown men. And I don't know, I reached out to coach, and man, it was just like to be there and just to like reflect on like being in the trenches, so to speak, you know, being in the position where it was just a dream, whether it be the NFL or the Olympics or whatever, and then to kind of just see how life played out. You know, for Anthony to have the, I guess Levine, we call him, he's probably going to be mad if he hears me call him Anthony, but to see the career that Levine had, see the career I had, to see what CJ did, it's make a grown man cry, honestly.
So I gotta ask you this one. So you made the 2018 games, and you know you had a performance that probably was, you know, about where you thought you would finish. Did you feel at that point coming back that you're going to go for another 4-year cycle? Did you expect that you would be in China in 2022? Or did it feel like, okay, we're just starting over, I'm back at the bottom, and here we go?
Um, I had no idea if I wanted to skate another 4 years at that time. Um, you know, a lot of people say that their like dream for Olympic gold started when they were 2 years old and saw so and so win at the, and you know, it was never like that for me. Um, my dream was always to be able to call myself an Olympian, to say that I skated in the Olympics. And so when I achieved that, um, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought that I had more to, I guess, more accolades to check off the list at that point. Um, some things in my personal life were pretty rocky, and I just kind of like, honestly, I was kind of like, where's Waldo at that time?
Really?
And I guess really the only thing that kept me wanting to skate is knowing that I could skate faster. Um, and honestly, the last quad I skated, while it ended up going how it went, it was probably the biggest character building time of my life. Um, Coaching changed for the national team. Uh, you know, between gnarly breakups and losses in the family, um, and on top of that, not skating as well as I would have liked to have been. Um, it was it was a really dark, hard time,
Mm.
um, and due to disagreements between me and the organization, I chose to leave the national team. And really, I think the last 2 seasons of me training alone and uh, going that route, I think gave me the mental and emotional strength and clarity to feel like I could do whatever I wanted to do, especially life after sport, especially dealing with how Olympic trials this past time went and retiring and whatever, like all of that being as hard as it was. I think the last 2 years of training alone and like having kind of like all of the adversity and accountability and pressure and whatever being solely on me, um, gave me the strength to be able to handle how Olympic trials ended up panning out,
Yeah.
and kind of like navigating my life journey after sport and trying to make sense of the last 12 years and, the normal things that are hard for a lot of athletes at the top of their sport to leave behind. So,
Yeah.
to answer your question, I never like to count my chickens before I guess count my chickens before they hatch. Is that how it goes?
Yeah.
Count my eggs, count my chickens.
Yeah.
So even in 2018, I never assumed that I would be there. I knew that I was skating well. I knew that, the times I was hitting in practice, if I could just execute good skating and do what I had been doing, that it would probably be good enough to make the team. If everybody skated their best race, I felt confidently that I could still make it. Um, I'll say this last trials, the level of competition I think was slightly deeper,
Yeah.
um,
Agreed.
and the times that I thought that would be needed to make the team, I still thought were doable for me. I never assumed that I would be in Beijing. I never planned to be in Beijing. I never told anybody I would be in Beijing. Um, but I was prepared. I can confidently say that I was prepared to make that team. At that time, I had kind of gone back to the drawing board a little bit this past season and upped my conditioning quite a bit, to be able to skate in slow Milwaukee, which actually seemed to be pretty quick for these trials.
Well, it's kind of interesting you bring that up because I wanted to show you this picture. I cherish this one because, you had come to Milwaukee early and I got to see you quite a bit and skate with you a little bit. I know you spent some time with Jordan, and both of you guys have always been very gracious with me when I'm asking technical questions and whatnot, and I really appreciate that. And it was really special to me that I got to spend some time with you during that time. Clearly, it ended up being just a weird, ridiculous situation, but honestly, you and I have never talked about it other than you let me know what happened and you got on an airplane and you left, and that's all I heard. So can you run through it real quick, as much as you care to share, about just from the moment you got a positive test to when all of a sudden you flew home?
Yeah, for sure. I leading up to trials, my sole focus was on Olympic trials. I didn't really care about, I don't want to say I didn't care, but my priorities weren't World Cup qualifiers. It wasn't the World Cups. Um, I honestly didn't really want to travel overseas. Um, I just wanted my upward trajectory to lead me into Olympic trials, and I treated it the same way I treated it the last, in 2018. I got out there early, about 3 weeks early, um, and I wanted to be comfortable there. I wanted to get used to the ice, the track patterns. Um, Train on some slower ice, get some last minute conditioning in. Jordan was nice. Jordan and Bob Corby were nice enough to welcome me with open arms and training sessions, and obviously Jordan's the hot shit right now. So after training alone for 2 years, it was nice to be not only to have a training partner to laugh and joke and be on the ice with, but also to learn from and kind of dial in some of my things as well going in. As far as the testing protocol went, I honestly didn't even look into what the protocols were before trials. Getting COVID was below the last thing on my list of things that I thought would happen. So we had to get a test done 4 to 6 days before the start of competition. But if a positive test did happen, it was like a mandatory 10 or 11 day absence from the venue, which in and of itself doesn't really make sense because it doesn't leave the opportunity for someone to test positive and somehow be able to skate. If I had gone out on my own and gotten a test just because 10 days before the competition, maybe I would have been able to skate, but I was just following, what was asked of me. And being completely asymptomatic, it was another nose swab. I went to Freighter to get the test done on a Thursday, I believe. The competition starting that following Wednesday. And I woke up Friday, got an email, said it was positive, completely 100% didn't believe it. Called up Julie Carpenter, was like, I need another test to be done today. Is there any way I can do it like right this second? Got a test done, a second one, and I think by Friday night it had said that I had another positive test, and it sparked a lot of text messages and phone calls between me, the hospital, US Speedskating, whatever. So I think I actually went to the rink. No, that would have been Thursday. So I didn't go to the rink once I had figured out I was positive. Friday's test happened, another positive test. That weekend was like a lot of scrambling around, a ton of phone calls, still not really like thinking and or believing that I wouldn't be able to compete. I ended up taking I think 3 rapid tests, all came back negative. And I was kind of like dumbfounded as to like what was going on. Not having any symptoms from a light headache to a runny nose, like nothing. And so my priority at that point was trying to figure out if there was any way for me to compete. If I could produce 2 positive tests, if I could come back and skate, and it wasn't in the cards. I thought more could have been done for me. Not to pitch the woe is me angle, but I was one of the top competitors. I was capable of making that team. And, from the first positive test I got doesn't solidify the fact that that's day 1 of me having COVID, especially if I was asymptomatic. So I don't know. I thought, if keeping the athletes safe and, not spreading the virus anymore and whatever was the top priority from the organization standpoint, I still thought that, if I was testing negative, those 3-4 days before my race, I just felt like something could have been done. And it was pretty much like, nope, we're sorry, nothing can be done. Is what it is. I'm sorry. So I was in Milwaukee for, I think, the first day of trials that Wednesday. And I was just kind of like, well, shit, there's no point in me being here. I can't go to the rink. I need to go home. It's like, it's costing me money being away from home. So I bought a ticket, flew back on Thursday, and watched the men's. I think the 1,000 was first, which was my more confident event. But yeah, watched it from my couch, saw the times, and it's funny. Me and Shawnee worked for a couple months leading up to trials as well while I was here, and I said, what you think? You think a high 108 will get me on the team? Take Jordan out of it. I wasn't beating Jordan. So I had trained to skate a 108.6. At the worst, a high 108. Saw the times, and was like, damn. So I watched trials, the rest of trials from my couch here in Salt Lake. And knew that I was good enough to make the team, and yeah, it definitely it took probably the month of January for me to like really understand that I wasn't going. And then, while the team was gone, the month of February, I was kind of filling in, helping with Mitch's team, helping out where I could. And once the skating season ended in March for the rest of the skaters back here in Salt Lake, that's kind of when it like really, really hit me. That it was kind of like, this is it.
Well, that's a good segue. You and I talked about this very briefly when I saw you at the finale, but for those of you who, or I guess the people that are maybe watching that want to know what's next for you, what are you going to do next?
Well, I'll preface that by saying the months of March, April, May, and maybe like the first week of June fucking sucked. It was really hard, really dark. Man, a lot of panic attacks, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. And I had absolutely zero idea what I wanted to do, what I wanted to kind of pour myself into. I felt like my heart was just like bleeding for a long time. And so I went home for a few months, went through all of that with my mom and my girlfriend and family. And what's next for me, I just got hired actually by US Speedskating to be the national team equipment technician, blade tech, equipment guy. So I just started this month doing that, and I'll be taking 16 credits this fall back in school towards a degree in computer science / software engineering.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and I have no idea if I'll like it. I have no idea what's going to come out of it. Um, one of my biggest fears is feeling as though I'm regressing and going backwards. However, I compartmentalize that in my head. So even through those hard times, I just felt like I needed to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Was applying for scholarships, trying to figure out, some, I guess, degree-wise, some things that seemed interesting enough for me to want to spend the time and money to do. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Looking back in hindsight, I didn't know when I moved to Salt Lake really what would transpire in that journey. The things I would see, the things I would accomplish, the people I would meet, the things that I would be taught, the things that I would teach myself, the things within myself that I would find and discover. I'm trying to use my experiences in skating, whether it be, mindset and discipline and things of that nature, to embrace whatever comes my way, and kind of use the skills that I've developed up until this point in my life to kind of get me through whatever's next.
Do you think you would make a good coach?
I thought about coaching for a little bit, especially when I was filling in February. Honestly, the biggest thing that turned me off from it, and it's something that I don't want to say struggled with when I was an athlete, but one of the things that I didn't enjoy about being an athlete was how full time it was. Not only from the countless hours of training, but just the kind of being cut off from the real world, and not having time, energy, or whatever for other things outside of skating. But training's just like, while a big part, also a small part of it. Between diet and sleep and recovery and treatment and whatever, I kind of had convinced myself that I didn't have time or energy for anything else, whether it be relationships or going on hikes with friends. I didn't want to be on my feet. I needed to rest. Skating just kept me so in the small skating world.
Yeah.
That even if I had time to do anything else, I didn't have like the energy or the mental and emotional capacity to feel like I could take on anything else. Kudos to those that are crushing it in skating and also getting their masters in things and getting their degrees. It's incredibly tough, and hats off to you guys, because I never felt like I could do that. I was a very all into skating, there's no plan B type of mindset, which I think is why my transition out of the sport was even more difficult than I think it would have been had I been invested in other things. But I don't know. The thing that drew me in about coaching, aside from my knowledge and feeling like I had things to offer to athletes, especially some of the younger athletes, especially some of the minorities that are, making their own way in the sport, was to give back. But I knew I thought I knew that if I coached, I would be even more waist deep into skating, because it wasn't just my journey that I had to be accountable for. It was all the athletes, the program, taking on all of their mental and emotional things with it, that I just had compartmentalized in my head that I still wouldn't have time and energy for other things outside of skating. So that was really the one thing that I couldn't mentally move past when I was thinking about that option. I was working towards like my level one, two, and three certs for to become a coach.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just couldn't move past that. Um, so I think with this job now, it still kind of puts me in the scene, allows me to kind of work through some of my stuff, um, give back to the athletes, make sure all their stuff's in tip-top shape, dialed in. Obviously, have a lot of friends still skating, and it allows me to have that sense of giving back, because I want the ones that haven't accomplished what I have or more, um, to be there for them and convince them that it is possible, and just kind of be at times like a little birdie in their ear to, make sure they're still doing the right things, and I get paid. So, for me, it's a win-win. It allows me to go back to school full time too, and I feel honestly, I was praying and hoping that I got this position. I was going to school either way, but I think really it's a way for me to give back while also dealing with a lot of things that have been hard to deal with and or things that I've avoided dealing with, um, in an environment that I felt wasn't always the most healthy for me at least. And yeah, just an opportunity to help me grow at the end of the day.
Cool. So you had said that I think a lot of what you enjoyed about being on the World Cup scene was seeing different parts of the world. When you think about travel in the future, are there specific places that you would like to go that you haven't been? Is there anything on the top of your list right now?
New Zealand. Honestly, anywhere in Africa.
Have you been anywhere in Africa yet?
No, and I want to go like within uh, limitations of my safety.
Sure.
I'd like to go in like the most raw, like raw, real parts of Africa as much as I am able to. Um, but I'd say like, and I guess it's technically part of Africa, Madagascar, New Zealand, Africa, Madagascar, are probably my top three.
Yeah, it sounds like you might want to find somebody to go with you that's been there before. If you're going to go into, especially if you get into the central part of that region, want to be careful out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought at some point, maybe next April, we should get together and fly to Poland and go find that cabin in the woods that Artur has, where he's always mixing his music, although he's quite busy coaching and having a lot of success. I think he's going to come on the show here sometime if I can figure out when he has free time, because obviously he's quite busy right now.
Yeah, I'd love to. Archer's honestly the one and only person that I wish I'd had the opportunity to train with.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because he actually was in Milwaukee for a short time. I don't think it was the highlight of his career, but hopefully we'll learn a little bit about that in a future episode.
Yeah, we share a lot of similarities in our personalities, um, a lot of similarities in our training philosophies and
Music.
music. He's awesome at straightaways, not the best at corners. I'm pretty good at corners, not the best at straights. So we both agree that we were we were somebody that we wish we could have trained with. But
Yeah.
Archer is honestly uh, the first uh, the first person in the sport that I, at least like on the circuit, became friends with from another country. Um, and he still is one of the only, one of the only skaters slash few that I know that can have conversations about things other than skating.
Yeah.
And that was something that really drew me in to that friendship, and definitely been somebody that I've kept in contact with since we met. We've talked a ton about training and technique and skating, of course, but also talked about a lot of the mental and emotional things of sports at a high level that seems to be like almost taboo to talk about in the sport. Not only life after sport, but just the things that we felt and went through, and I think we're both people that it's like we can go as deep as the other person wants to go in conversation and
Yeah.
within ourselves, and yeah, he's a good
Well,
ass dude.
I think it's settled then. We need to do a remote one of these in the cabin. We'll record the three of us. I
That's
will
if
have
his
very
that's if
little
his
role.
Wi-Fi's yeah, that's if his Wi-Fi's good enough out there.
Well, you gotta. I'm gonna share something else with you here, and I want you to just explain this to me because this is not my strong suit. You ready?
Hmm.
Okay, here we go. All right, explain tipper to me.
Oh, um,
I mean,
explain
it's more
Tipper.
it's more. This artist is more to you than just electronic music, right?
For sure. Um, explain Tipper.
I stumped you.
I he's definitely as far as music genres to me in a genre of his own. Um, Definitely a trendsetter. He's completely pushed the envelope of like what can be considered music. I mean, it's sound engineering at its finest to me, but um, really for me, music, if it makes me think and feel, it really draws me in. Um, and not having any words in his songs, uh, and to still be able to like go to the places that I do mentally and to like feel what I feel in his music to me is super powerful. And I remember the first time I met him was super random. I was at a music festival. My homeboy came running by me. He's like, his name's Dave Tipper, but he's like, Dave's over there, woo woo woo, and I was like, what? So we like ran over, and I had actually like designed some shirts for that festival, and got him to sign a shirt, and I was very like starstruck almost, which I had never experienced meeting any human. And sat there and chatted for a little bit, maybe like a 5 minute encounter. Um, and that was in 2015 or 16. After seeing him a few times live, and then fast forward to making the Olympic team in 2018. Throughout 2015 to 18, I had designed a lot of T-shirt designs and gone to shows and sold shirts, and Um, I ended up becoming really close with his manager, whose name's also Dave, and who also turns out to be a super big speed skating fan.
Really?
hmm And I think he has some Scandinavian roots, maybe. Um, so I think someone in his family or someone he knows used to skate. Anyway, um, before the 2018 games, I had started a GoFundMe to help some family get to the Olympics because I had none of my personal circle there with me. So I was trying to raise some money to help get my cousin and his wife out and whatnot. But I had asked his manager at the time if he felt comfortable linking my GoFundMe in a couple of the Tipper Facebook pages because I didn't feel comfortable kind of like self-promoting myself. I never really do, but anyway, he did, and like the response I got was insane, so humbling. So many like really, really cool, top-notch producers donating, Tipper donating, some of the people that own some of the festival grounds that I've been to donating, like just crazy donations from so many people that you know I didn't think would even care to donate.
That's
Um,
really neat.
and that kind of like solidified. Uh, I talked to his manager a couple times at some shows and shot the shit, and gave him some free shirts that I designed and stuff. But that kind of like solidified um, our relationship, and I ended up getting guest listed to a couple shows in uh, Northern California and Portland, immediately following the 2018 games. So it was an opportunity to really meet Tipper and like talk to him for 20, 30 minutes, and um, he's just a normal ass dude. He's just a cool ass guy, really humble, really quiet. And I admire his craft. I admire his musicianship. A lot of things I learned in music theory through classical music, I find prevalent in all of his music. And just to be able to like talk to him and tell him how much of an inspiration he was for me, and for him to tell me I'm an inspiration for him is just like it just like further uh, solidified my love for his music and what he does and what his team does. And as far as like a music standpoint slash performance slash music festival standpoint, it's just all about the art, which I really love.
Yeah.
It showcases like just top-notch sound quality from like the speakers and subs that they have to the live painters and other artists that they bring on board, their creativity. It's just like, art is so infinite and limitless, and uh, to see them just keep pushing what live music experience can be like, on top of him just crushing in his own lane at what he does. Man, it's all love for those guys.
When was the last time you were at a show?
April.
Where was that one?
It was down in Florida. I think it's actually in Live Oak, Florida. It's kind of in between Jacksonville and uh, what's that city? It's like northwestern Florida.
Yeah, okay.
These grounds called Suwannee Music Park. It's like my favorite place to be. But
Huh.
yeah, I was down there, caught a few sets from. Actually, ran into him on my way to the amphitheater. He was riding around in a golf cart, and just like I was walking to the stage with my lady, and he just like pulled out the corner of a dirt path on a golf cart, and I pointed at him, and I was like, "Dad," and he started laughing, and it was, it's just, I don't know, he's just a cool ass normal dude that crushes at what he does. He's in a league of his own, but it doesn't uh, it doesn't alter like how he treats people. It's kind
Yeah.
of it's something that I resonate with because a lot of times when I'm with my friends back home, especially my one friend, like, oh, this is Kimani. He's like an Olympian, like da 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 da. And that's like I never tell people that.
Yeah.
Um, Not to toot my own horn in any way. It's just like that's my little thing. That's my little journey, my little craft, my thing that I went deep in myself to find, and I find that with Tipper as well. He comes on stage, he's not like on the mic hyping it up, like getting the crowd going. He just comes on stage, rips it for an hour, walks off stage, and that's it. He just lets the music do the talking,
Yeah.
and yeah, just a super humble, cool guy.
Thanks for sharing that. I had a feeling that would be a good segment.
Yeah, but it's pretty. I haven't found any musician that does what he does, and I think a lot of the quote unquote greats of anything, it's kind of like what makes them great is it's they're the only ones doing it.
Yeah.
They're creating a lane for themselves. They're inspiring others. There's a lot of people that like almost have a Tipper-esque sound to it, but it's not quite Tipper. Like no one ever quite does it like he does. Um, and yeah, I geek out over his stuff, especially live.
Cool. I say cool too much. I gotta stop doing that. But it is cool.
It is
Well,
very cool.
you've been extremely gracious with your time. We went way past an hour. I had a feeling we would though. Really enjoyed going deep with you, which I figured we would. I didn't think this would be a superficial, boring, experience together. So proud to call you a friend. You've always treated me great from the first time we interacted, and I appreciate that a lot.
Likewise. It's all love, brother.
All right, man. Let's play the outro and call this a wrap. What do you say?
Sounds good. Thanks for reaching out and having me be a part of it. It's been fun.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
We're
big
out.
bless.